The file was sealed inside a warped metal box, its lock fused by rust and pressure, the lid tattooed by frost and the faint outline of a forgotten insignia. Inside, wrapped in a layer of oilskin and brittle twine, lay a single dossier marked in crumbling type. SOE, Section D, Operation to Vemork. A second line, handwritten in blunt pencil, cut across the page like a scar. Impossible. 9 men attempted anyway. This was not the story of soldiers, it was the story of ghosts. 9 commandos who moved through winter darkness, hunted by German patrols, starved, frozen, and alone in the most brutal terrain in northern Europe. Their objective was a fortress nestled in a high Norwegian gorge, guarded by mines, floodlights, machine gun nests, and a permanent garrison. A facility so vital that Hitler had ordered it held at all costs. It was called Vemork, the world's largest producer of heavy water, and the single most important installation in Germany's race to build an atomic bomb. Destroying it was considered impossible, until 9 men proved otherwise. The story begins in the cold European autumn of 1942 at the height of the Second World War. Germany occupied Norway. The Luftwaffe patrolled the skies. The Kriegsmarine prowled the fjords. The Gestapo hunted resistance networks with ruthless efficiency. And deep within Norway's Telemark region, guarded by cliffs, ice, and German troops, the Norsk hydro plant at Vemork produced heavy water, deuterium oxide, the rare ingredient the Reich believed it needed to fuel a nuclear reactor. Allied intelligence understood the danger. If Hitler's scientists succeeded in building a reactor, they could create plutonium, and from plutonium could come a bomb capable of leveling entire cities. The Allies had no margin for error. Vemork had to be destroyed, but it sat atop a gorge so deep that the river below roared like a constant storm. The bridge into the facility was guarded day and night. The internal corridors were locked behind steel doors. Anti-aircraft guns and mountain fog made bombing futile. Paratrooper insertion seemed like fantasy. The Special Operations Executive, the SOE, Britain's covert sabotage force, studied the problem until the only solution remaining was one no commander wanted to approve. Send a handful of Norwegian commandos into the mountains. Let them freeze, starve, and crawl their way to Vemork. Have them break inside, plant explosives, and then disappear. It would be a miracle if even one returned. Still, the plan moved forward. SOE selected a group of young Norwegian resistance fighters who had escaped to Britain after the German invasion. Men hardened by exile, trained in sabotage, demolition, radio work, and winter survival. Their first task was to infiltrate Norway and prepare for a second wave of airborne troops. Their team was codenamed Grouse. On 18 October 1942, 4 men, Jens Anton Poulsen, Arne Kjellstrup, Knut Haugland, and Klaus Hellberg, parachuted onto the Hardanger Plateau. The landing was violent. Winds slammed them across the ice, their supplies scattered over miles. They collected what they could, buried what they could not, and vanished into the wilderness before German aircraft arrived. They built a shelter in a stone hollow, surviving on reindeer moss, snowmelt, and whatever they could catch or scavenge. Temperatures plunged below 30 degrees C. The wind tore at their faces, filling their lungs with needles of ice. Yet they survived, waiting for the next stage of the operation. A team of British sappers transported by gliders who would provide the manpower and explosives needed to storm the plant. That team never arrived. Operation Freshman, the glider assault, ended in disaster. Bad weather shattered the gliders against the mountains. Survivors were captured, interrogated, and executed by the SS under Hitler's commando order. The Grouse team, now stranded and starving, retreated deeper into the wilderness. For 2 months they stayed alive on almost nothing. hunting reindeer with crude traps, boiling snow for water, rationing crumbs of chocolate and powdered soup. They endured frostbite, infection, hypothermia, and isolation. German patrols prowled the plateau, searching for the team they suspected was still alive. Most units would have been extracted or abandoned the mission. Grouse waited, and in February 1943 the SOE sent a second team, gunner side, to complete the job. These 5 additional commandos parachuted into Norway on a moonless night, landing silently in the snow. Joachim Rønneberg, Knut Haukelit, Hans Storhaug, Kasper Edlund, Birger Strömsheim. These were the 9 men history would remember. The Grouse 4, the gunner side 5. Together they became one of the most extraordinary sabotage teams of the 20th century. Rønneberg, barely 23 years old, was appointed mission leader. He had never led a combat operation. Now he commanded an assault on the most heavily guarded industrial fortress in northern Europe. He studied the terrain. He studied German patrol routes. He studied the blueprints smuggled out by the Norwegian resistance. He concluded the same thing as the planners in London. There was no rational way in. The bridge was too heavily defended. The front gate was a death trap. The railway line was guarded. But the maps showed something else, an almost vertical ravine behind the plant carved by the Mona River. If the team could descend into the gorge, cross the icy rapids, climb the opposite wall, and reach the plant's rear basement door, which German troops believed inaccessible, they could infiltrate the facility undetected. It would be a gamble against death. So they prepared. Under cover of darkness, the 9 commandos skied across the plateau, carrying rifles, submachine guns, explosives, fuses, and compasses in packs that dug into their shoulders. They slept in snow caves. They melted ice for drinking water. They listened for German patrols through the howling wind. By 27 February 1943, they reached the top of the gorge. Below them lay Vemork, lights glowing through the freezing fog, guard towers silhouetted against the cliffs, the massive industrial plant humming with the machinery of atomic ambition. The descent began. Rønneberg and his team lowered themselves into the ravine, ice axes biting into the rock, snow crumbling under their boots. Sparks from falling stones pinged into the dark. The river roared below, half-frozen, lethal. They crossed it silently, boots slipping on the slick stones, hands numb from cold. Then they climbed the far side, scraping, clawing, crawling upward toward the factory's rear. When they reached the top, exhausted and coated in frost, Rønneberg signaled the team forward. They approached the basement door. It was unguarded. The Germans believed no one could possibly reach it. The commandos picked the lock, entered quietly, split into teams. Rønneberg and Strömsheim went directly for the heavy water electrolysis cells. They found them humming, bathed in pale light, rows of steel cylinders holding the precious substance the Nazis believed would power a bomb. They placed the explosives, each charge fitted with a time pencil fuse. There was no margin for error. The team worked in near total silence, aware that a single metallic clang could alert the guards above. As they finished wiring the charges, a German guard moved overhead, his footsteps echoing faintly through the concrete ceiling. The commandos froze. Only when the footsteps faded did they move again. Rønneberg set the last fuse, turned to the team, whispered, "Time to go." They slipped back the way they came. No gunfire, no alarms, no discovery. As they reached the cliff edge, a blast rolled through the valley. The heavy water chambers were torn apart, pipes ruptured. The entire supply of deuterium oxide, the heart of Hitler's nuclear dreams, poured onto the floor, burning through concrete and pooling in ruined trenches. The Nazis' atomic program suffered a blow from which it would never recover. The 9 commandos split up immediately. German troops began sweeping the area, tracking the footprints the saboteurs left in the snow. Haukelit and two others remained behind to slow pursuit, leading German ski patrols on a chase across the mountains. The remaining 6 skied into Sweden, a journey of more than 250 miles through some of the harshest terrain in Europe. They survived. All 9 survived. The Germans were stunned. They had assumed the plant would be attacked through the front. They believed the gorge was impassable. They believed the door was secure. They were wrong on every count. The Allies celebrated quietly. The operation remained classified for years. SOE's final report described the mission with the usual understatement. Sabotage successful, enemy supply corrupted, impact significant. But the truth was far greater. The destruction of Wehrmacht's heavy water production crippled Nazi Germany's ability to pursue nuclear weapons. The sabotage forced the Germans to attempt transporting remaining heavy water to the Reich months later. And that ferry was sunk by resistance fighters. The nuclear program stalled, starved of critical materials and time. And the world would remember Wehrmacht not as the birthplace of Hitler's bomb, but as the fortress shattered by 9 men who should never have reached it. Today, the gorge remains. The plant stands as a museum. The cliffs echo with silence. But if you listen carefully when the wind cuts down the ravine, it carries faint traces of what happened in the winter of 1943, when 9 commandos crossed the ice, slipped into an industrial fortress, and struck a blow that reshaped the future of the war. A mission impossible on paper, unlikely in training, unthinkable in execution, but achieved by men who refused to accept the word impossible. This was Wehrmacht. This was Operation Gunnerside. This was the sabotage that saved the world from a darker ending to the Second World War.